Do you find yourself running out of time to accomplish your work? Are you spending time doing things that you're not that good at? There are effective ways to outsource these tasks so you can focus on your business. This is the Virtual Success Show. We bring the inside scoop on outsourcing success for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. And now, here are your hosts, Matt Maloof and Barbara Turley.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show this week. I'm joined by my co-host, Barbara Turley. Hey Barb.
Hey Matt, how's it going? Good week?
I'm having a great week, and yourself?
Yes, pretty good. Busy as always, but going well.
Excellent. Barbara, I'm really looking forward to today's episode. It was really interesting in the conversation we're having just in preparing about some of the challenges that you've been witnessing with virtual teams this week. And I'm really excited about the challenge you're going to share with everyone today, and how we're going to unpack that and help everyone learn how to solve this. Do you want to give everyone a little bit of insight into what's been happening?
Sure, yeah. So I had a really interesting situation happen this week where, we often send feedback forms out to our clients about how their VAs are doing in Virtual Angel Hub, where we recruit, as you know, and train VAs. And I call it compare the pair, because we've had this interesting one come back where we have the same VA working on two different client accounts, part-time on both accounts. Both businesses are similar business models, so they're not that dissimilar. They both do similar task lists. One arguably is probably a bit more complex than the other, but the business that is a bit more complex, the feedback about the VA was that she is fantastic. I don't know what I would do without her. Her attention to detail has been amazing. Her initiative, glowing report. The other business has come back with a list of complaints. There says the attention to detail is low, basically not wholly happy with this VA, and would like to have a discussion about it. So I found this very interesting, because how can the same VA with the same experience and the same attitude have two so dramatically different situations occur with different clients? So it's been a tricky one for me to unpack.
Absolutely. So if we just to reiterate, they're very similar businesses.
Yes.
Similar task lists.
Yes.
That the VA has to perform in both businesses. One raves about them, and the other is considering dropping them?
Yeah, I would say not dropping them yet, but I know from the field that we're heading in that direction.
So let's call it frustrated and unhappy.
Frustrated, yeah. Yeah, and unhappy. So
it's really interesting, isn't it? Because if we, again, just in the analysis piece here, you've got, what's the common denominator? Well, the common denominator is the virtual assistant.
Yes.
The environment is very similar. And so where do the differences lie? Well, the differences lie in the managers and leaders, really, when you really start to look at this. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Of course, the natural tendency in this situation I've noticed with clients of ours, this is natural, is the person who's not having such a great experience. The first thing they really want to do is they want to get rid of them. They immediately say, well, clearly they don't know, the VA doesn't know what she's doing, and I just need someone else. And we've had this situation happen a couple of times, and sometimes that particular client will end up going through strings of VAs. So this is an add-on sort of to this, where they'll end up having a similar problem recurring with different VAs that go in.
Interesting. And I think the thing to highlight here is that there's a common denominator amongst in that scenario that you just posed, which is it's the business owner.
Yes. So the common denominator in the first scenario is the same VA, different outcome. And in the second sort of add-on, it's same business owner, same client, different VAs.
And Barb, I think in my work as a business coach, and I literally coach thousands of businesses now every year, I see this all the time. I see this both with virtual teams as well as people that you employ directly in your offices and the like, physical teams, where business owners or managers, getting frustrated, and so they're hiring people. People aren't doing what they desire, the way they want, in the right manner. They get rid of that person, bring in another. Same thing happens. They do it again. And the interesting thing is they never stop to look and ask themselves, well, what's the challenge here? Where's this broken down? Where is this breaking down over and over again? And so what they end up doing is playing out insanity. They keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
And getting more frustrated along the way, because obviously doing that is you get into the vicious cycle of hiring, firing, retraining. It's very exhausting on any business owner. And
costly. It's extremely costly.
Yes.
So what I'd love to do for our listeners right now is probably give a little bit of a checklist or a methodology that you can go through in unpacking and solving this kind of problem. What do you think, Barb?
Oh, that sounds great. I'm really keen to delve into this with you because you've done this with so many businesses. So that's why I'm excited about today's show, because I'm definitely going to learn a lot from this.
Fantastic. Well, the first thing that I always recommend in this scenario, you've got let's just go with scenario one. You've got the one VA serving two people, doing similar tasks but getting a different result. For me, if your virtual assistant or anyone on your team is not getting the result you desire, the first thing I always go back to is the system that they're implementing. We need to remember that the systems are what drive our business and our people drive the systems. So in our own businesses and together with the companies that we coach, that's the starting point. Let's go back to the system. Is it a system flaw? Is there a chink in the chain? Is there, it's often with new systems or processes that are being applied, something's been forgotten, we haven't documented something, we haven't trained something in the right way. So first point is, and the starting point is always to go back to the system and run through the system. And ideally what you would do is you would have your virtual team member run through from their model of the world the system that they're implementing.
Yes, yeah.
So that you can understand, are they doing it the way that it's been documented? Where is it falling down?
Yeah, it's funny because on that, one of the things that we do with clients when they come into Virtual Angel Hub is we talk a lot about their processes. And something I've been out talking about a lot recently is saying to people, sometimes a mistake is actually a gift because it shows you where there's a hole in the process, assuming nothing else is the problem. Often I see business owners, and I know you would see this as well, they think they have a process, but when you actually go to do it or you watch the person, maybe it the VA or a staff member trying to do it, it's such a complicated process that could be simplified, and where there are so many areas where mistakes can happen. I call it the margin for error. The margin for error in the process is so large that a lot of people are going to end up making mistakes. So this problem of inefficient processes, how do you deal with that one? Or complex processes, I guess, what I would say, overly complicated processes.
Yeah, I think. Look, at the end of the day, you need to make things as simple as possible. I think a big mistake I see with processes is people document, you need to do A, then B, then C. When they're teaching the system, though, they're not teaching people how to think through what could go wrong, or the questions that are often you're asking yourself unconsciously in your head as you implement the system.
Oh, that's very valuable. Yes, that's a really big problem that we see a lot.
Yeah. So I don't know that it's necessarily the complexity of the system. It often comes down to a training issue that you haven't taught somebody how to think while they're implementing the system.
Mm.
And there's only so much you can document or get through a video or an audio. You just need to. It's teaching people how you think. I think the second part of that is to make sure that you're reviewing systems regularly and becoming efficient at what you do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I find where a lot of system breakdown occurs is because people are trying to cut corners to save time. rather than sitting there and working the system and going, how can we become more efficient? As I said, they simply try and cut this out or do that without testing it, and hence it leads to mistakes. So I think the reality is that some systems are simpler than others. There are at times going to be complex parts to anyone's business, and it's just addressing those and breaking things down to the lowest common denominator, keeping it, as I said, as simple as possible in order for people to succeed. And I think it's just to add to that last bit, it's setting people up to win. It's setting people up to succeed.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So what about, let's say the system, you've ticked that. So number one is check the system and really have a look at how that's performing. So let's say that you feel like, the system works well. It's very, it's detailed enough, etc. Let's say that's not the issue. What would be the next thing that we would look at?
The next thing I would look at is then I would try and understand from the person's perspective, the team member's perspective, where they feel it's breaking down. So as we mentioned before, systems run the business, people run the system. So is it a people issue? Is it that I'm not, is my virtual team member distracted? Have they got the right work environment? Am I communicating in a way that is effective for them? Am I training them the right way? Do they actually have the level of competency that I expect? Do they actually understand what I expect and how I want things done? So I'm asking all these questions around the people side of this. So if we go system gets a big tick, then we look at the people. And I think are they the right person? Do they have the right skill set? Have I trained them enough? And I guess are they aligned with me and my business?
Yes, I mean, that can be a tricky one too, because sometimes, as you know, I mean, staff come into jobs for various different reasons. And often I always say to clients, they're never going to love your business as much as you do. Of course, they will, but it's your baby really. And sometimes I think business owners sort of have an expectation on their staff to, I guess, love and adore it all as much as they do. And that, while that's nice in theory, I think in reality, they never love it as much as you do, of course. It's a different relationship, I guess, with the business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this is where, it was going to be my fourth point, but I'll make it now. I think this is where having a strong set of values and having a vision for the company helps people buy into something bigger.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I think that often with these breakdowns with people, like, again, coming back to our original scenario, company A, person A loves the VA, person B is not aligned, it's not working for them. There's a mismatch. The mismatch comes because it could be a values misalignment or a cultural misalignment within the business. Yeah. So, or often there's an expectations misalignment.
I think that's a huge one, actually. I think expectations misalignment is a big one.
And this often comes about because the core values and the expectations have never been documented, and the people within the company have never been educated around this. So it's just this assumption that, well, they're just going to do it the way that I expect them to do it. But you've never clearly defined how you expect them to do it. And I think this is it's a very personal thing. I've coached companies before where you've got two business owners sharing a virtual assistant, and the two owners have very different philosophies. You've got owner number one that needs to be updated constantly, almost effectively micromanages, but you've got owner number two who is more deadline driven and doesn't mind how the virtual assistant gets from point A to point B as long as they get there by the due date. There's always going to be challenges there because of there's a misalignment. That person will only ever probably meet the expectations of one of those owners. And so the question you've got to ask yourself is, number one, am I clear on what I expect? And number two, is my virtual team member clear then on what I expect. And so it starts with you.
Yeah, rather than making assumptions.
That's right.
There's a lot of assumptions made in all of these situations, I think.
The reality is, Barb, is that with a lot of these challenges, both with virtual teams and local teams, it often comes back to the owner, manager, or leader. And it's often because they're so focused on so many different things, so many different areas of the business. I've got to get to break even. I've got to keep the cash flow happening. I've got to market. I've got to sell. I've got to deliver. There's so many things that this piece of which Stephen Covey would call important but not urgent task of defining your core values and defining the expectations that you have gets forgotten. And then we wonder why we have these people challenges.
Yeah, and it's not working. And interestingly, I love that you touched on this whole leadership piece, because I want to know what your thoughts are on how important is, I mean, I know it's important, but how much can the relationship between a staff member, be they virtual or not, and a leader affect the sort of outcomes that you're getting?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, people are people, aren't they? So relationship, I think, is vitally important. We need to get clear that, in managing people, it's about managing a relationship. And in all relationships, it's what you give to it, not what you can get from it. And that's where I think a lot of business relationships, but employee-employer relationships fall down, is because the employer is focused on what they can get from the employee, as opposed to how can we work together in a win-win scenario to achieve what it is we're setting out to achieve.
I mean, I love that, because there's something I'm really noticing out there is, I've seen the people I'm seeing that are doing really well with their virtual staff, or, I'm sure it's the same in regular offices as well. When the business owner truly sees this person as an asset that they can use and grow, and, that an asset to be grown, for the betterment of their company, they do really, really well. But naturally, when we're in business, and as you say, cash flow could be one of the greatest, headaches that any business goes through. And sometimes when cash flow is tight or things are a bit rough, you can start to, even if you don't realize it, internally see your staff or your teams as a real cost and a drain on you. And I think that's when relationships start to break down, because you may not realize that it changes your tone, it changes how you communicate with them, and they feel it. And the whole relationship starts to kind of break down. I have seen that happen a little bit as well. I'm wondering what you think of that.
Absolutely. Well, I think that it's all about personal management, isn't it, Barb? It's understandable when you've got cash flow challenges, which, by the way, again, through my experience in coaching many businesses, whether you're a startup or, I've seen companies turning over 20 million plus, there's still cash flow challenges from time to time. And so those.
So we never get away from it, Matt, is that
managing cash is one of the most critical parts of any business. But the reality is, you're right. It's about, cash is tight. I want to get the most out of this person. I want to make sure I'm maximizing my return. Why aren't they getting things when I need them? And there's all this pressure on you that you then project onto them. And often they don't understand why. They're just there doing their thing. And they're wondering, well, what have I done wrong? What's going on today?
That starts to induce a bit of fear as well. Fear or uncertainty in the staff member. And I've noticed that once with the VAs that we have anyway, I've noticed that once their confidence slips a bit and they think they're not good enough, obviously I'm dealing with Filipinos, so that's something culturally over there. They I mean, this is everywhere, but culturally with them, I've noticed that if they start to feel like they're not good enough, mistakes start to actually escalate, because they start to really fear for they fear for the job, they fear for themselves, and mistakes can actually escalate because of that.
Absolutely. And I think anyone put under that kind of pressure is going to make mistakes. So, it's like what we were talking about earlier, setting people up to win. But, we're talking on this topic of communication. That's where it comes down to. It's another area where this needs to be addressed in order to solve this problem is the communication. Am I communicating clearly? Am I giving clear, concise instructions that the other person, my virtual team member, understands. Yeah, it's remembering that for many of these virtual team members, English is a second language for them. Yes. So one of the little techniques that I use regularly is I get my team to repeat back the tasks so that I hear it. I'll get them to either type it back to me or say it back to me so I can hear it and refine it right at the front end.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I remember we did a whole show on this, obviously communication, and it's so key to remember to invest time in your communication with a virtual team member.
Absolutely. And I think with the communication side, one habit that I've gotten into with my teams is, the cycle of our business is that we sort of, once a quarter, we have a road show and a whole heap of events. And the reality is there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. We're traveling from city to city, and we host, I think we host 6 or 7 events in the space of 5 days. So it's full on. And I always preface to the team, I say, guys, obviously we're riding the big wave now. It's sort of like the calm before the storm, and then we're riding the wave. Just keep in mind that I'm going to probably be short, and I'm going to be just giving you things in bullet points. Please don't take offense to it. It's not. I'm going to be rushing it. I'm going to be on stage, off stage, a whole heap of stuff. They understand, so they don't take offense to it. So if I give short, sharp responses or instruction, they understand because Matt's, he's got a lot going on at the moment.
Yeah, not that I'm not good enough and the relationship has changed, or I've done something wrong, or because that's what can start to happen with particularly written communication. Short, sharp written stuff, I find can sound sharper than the person meant to.
Absolutely.
So just to recap then, because this is such a fascinating area, and often I think people are getting rid of very good virtual teams or virtual staff too quickly, is what I'm seeing. Sometimes sometimes we need to get rid of the person, but sometimes it's actually not the person. So let's just recap the points you made there. So first step is look at the systems. Systems drive the business, people drive the systems. So systems first.
Yes.
And then after that, it's important to look at the person, but not necessarily, I would say, don't immediately look at the flaws of the person. Let's look at how that person is implementing the system, how they have understood the training, etc., before we move on to, is this just a bad employee, for example? And then the relationship and the communication, the relationship, and making sure that it is, I guess, a positive, reinforcing type of relationship, rather than even an underlying negativity that may be there that could affect communication. And then I love your point about making sure that there's no mismatch with values and expectations, so that both people understand what success looks like and what we're striving for.
And I think all of these 4 points, Barb, need to form part of your recruitment process in recruiting your virtual teams. And they also need to form part of your performance review criteria in assessing them on their performance against these criteria as well. So it shouldn't only be a checklist that's used when there's a problem.
Yeah, it can be an ongoing. This actually formulates the entire backbone of your virtual team, by the sounds of it, from recruitment right through to ongoing management.
Absolutely.
I'll definitely be taking that point. It's very valuable to me.
So if we just bring this all back to where we started with this, in the scenario where you've got a virtual team member serving client A who loves them and is getting a great result, and client B who is having some challenges, I'm sure if we went through each of these 4 points very quickly, client B would understand and it would start to highlight the gaps either in the client or in their systems within their business.
Yes, I mean, from my own knowledge of some of the issues I've seen, a lot of it comes down to having no systems and processes, which, as we've talked about many times, and we will many times again on this podcast, that's just a road to disaster if you're trying to scale a business or build something that is a true business. And I think the other one I see a lot, communication. We did a whole show on this because it's so important. The communication style and the relationship, even the unconscious relationship, is very, very important to get to look at, and to look at yourself as well, and how you're viewing your staff. If you're viewing them from an internal place of maybe a little bit of resentment, that sort of thing, the cost versus asset thing, that can really come back and bite people badly. Sometimes they don't know they're doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Barb, I think that was great. I think that really, I hope that's given you some insight on that you can take back and work through some of the challenges.
Absolutely. I've been furiously writing notes, Matt. This has really been an episode for me, I have to say. And I know that given I've gotten so much out of it, I can imagine that people listening will be, will really have a few eye-opening realizations having had this process laid out. So thanks for that.
You're welcome. Thank you, Barb, and have a fantastic week. And till next week's episode.
Yeah. See you then.
See you then.
Thank you for listening to the Virtual Success Show. If you found this show helpful, take a moment to share it with a friend so that we can all grow together. Find out more about the inside scoop on outsourcing success by going to our website, virtualsuccessshow.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.